My name is John Dawe. I am the Managing Director of PARSOL, the Pennsylvania Association for Rational Sexual Offense Laws. I'm the Marketing Director for NARSOL. The lights are flashing. Okay. And we have a dynamic panel today of leaders from across the movement. And this is how we're going to do this today, which they don't know yet, so it's going to be a surprise to them. No. We are going to have a bunch of questions that hopefully they've prepared responses to, and then we'll take some questions. Each person is going to have a minute to answer each question, and then I will, well, we need a buzzer, or you all can go, eh. Let's practice that. Thank you. So if they go over by more than 15 seconds, and I do, thank you.
Yes, exactly.
So we're going to start with some introductions, although Chris introduced who they were. We're going to start with Brenda and go across and just your name, your organization, and maybe a little bit about what brought you here today as far as the movement and your organization. And, yep. Just a brief history of you in a minute or less. Ready, go.
Okay. So I thought this was picking it up.
But that too.
The big one, yeah.
Okay. Is it on? Testing. No, I think it's off. Right.
There we go. That's green.
Okay. Well, I didn't say anything yet, so we're saying. I was just like, is this thing on? Yeah. So Brenda Jones, NARSOL. I've been involved with NARSOL since 2010. And have been involved in the movement just a slightly bit longer than that. And I got started, like many of us did, through a family member, and have been involved with what was then RSOL and now NARSOL during that time. I got my big start, I think, was the fact that back in 2010, right after my son-in-law went off to start serving time, I found out, oh, there's this thing called a registry. And shortly after that, there was this major case in Maryland that was a murder that generated a huge number of new laws being proposed, which included passing SORNA that year in Maryland. And I kind of dove in to try to tackle that, having never darkened the door of a legislative building in my life. And just hadn't really turned back since then. So just there you go, 1 minute. That was my beginning, yeah.
I'm Janice, still Janice. I'm civil rights attorney.
Badass.
Dang. Actually, Frank gave me the nickname Rocket Fuel because I used to do aerospace type things. So I'm here, folks. I'm not going away. I've been doing this for 15 years. I'm going to do it as long as I can. Plenty to slide into home plate, as they say. And I actually, my first choice is not to file a lawsuit, but when they're stupid and they won't change their ways, then I sue the bastards.
They've got their own.
Testing.
Yep.
Hi, everyone. First of all, John, thank you for inviting me to be on the panel. I greatly appreciate this. My name is Shawn, Barrera-Leaf, and I am the Executive Director of United Voices for Sex Offense Reform. We are a national nonprofit. We began our initiative in 2021, and since that time, we have gained tremendous momentum. But not only that, we are following in the footsteps of people who have paved the way for us to have the courage to do this. And I appreciate that from some of the high stakes that we have here on the other side of the panel that gave us this opportunity to follow their steps. So with that, a little bit about our organization is that we are primarily impacted federally in the jurisdiction, and we have mostly family members who are just basically done with having their loved ones marginalized and being basically hated, for lack of a better word. So hopefully I'll be able to have some discussions with some of you after this, and I will pass this on to Amber.
Thank you, Shawn. And I also want to say thank you for inviting me to be part of this panel. I'm Amber Vlangas, and I am with Restorative Action Alliance. You'll also hear me talk a little bit about the National Coalition Against Conviction Registries today. And I've been on the journey and the fight against sexual violence for over 25 years, having been a survivor of military sexual trauma while I served in the Marine Corps. And also I am a person who is supporting a spouse who is required to register. I am an activist, and my day job is I work with the ACLU, and so that's enough about me. Restorative Action Alliance exists to end cycles of sexual violence. You probably got that from what we've been talking about all day. But we also believe that we need to be ending state violence in the form of conviction registries, onerous probation conditions, the excessive sentencing, the sex exceptionalism that you see in the system as a whole, and the civil rights abuses that are committed against those who are required to register. We also don't believe in civil commitment. The National Coalition. Oh, okay. I'll come back to that. I'll get it in.
My name is Ann Croat. I am part of Women Against Registry and the Women Against Registry Family Foundation. I literally just signed up 2 years ago, so I don't really feel like I should be sitting on this panel, but 2 years ago was a very different Ann than I am today. I've really grown into this position. When they first asked me to do it, I was like, oh, I got 5 hours a week I could give you. And then they all quit and I'm still here, and I've found a lot of really good volunteers, and I'm kind of ready to rebuild. WAR has been around for maybe 12 years or so, and we lost our president retired, and it's been a real rejuggle. Things have not been simple. And then you add the wreck and the partner moving 7 hours away for a year and a half. But all those things are settling down. My partner moved back in September, and things are settling down for me, so I'm ready to do big things.
Thank you. We're gonna go backwards, and so we'll go back and continue with Ann. And the first question for your next 1 minute response. Okay, good. What are one or two major things going on with your organization that conference attendees should know about and take back to their home groups?
Really, the big thing I'm planning to start working on is that idea that I've had for a while, the Bravery Day. I think I've got some people already signed up who've said I'll be a video in that thing. I've already taped one of those. I would take more, but that's the big thing that I want to start working on this year. And in order to pull that off, I'm going to need some help. So if you're starting to find some new, enlightened, wanting to spend time on this, I would love to add you to my team.
So I'm going to focus on the National Coalition Against Conviction Registries. So for those who don't know what it is, this is a collaboration right now of over 30 organizations that are coming together to pool resources, to build power, to provide support, and collaborate. And I'll actually read the mission real quickly, and the ask is, if you have not joined the coalition, your organization has not joined the coalition, reach out. We would love to have you. And so the National Coalition Against Conviction Registry convenes and connects diverse organizations to share ideas and resources, building collective power to upend narratives and systems that drive counterproductive sex offense policies and divert resources from effective solutions to end cycles of harm. And so I want to say that one person didn't sit around and create that mission statement. We took great pains to get information from every single member of the coalition, and we are co-building this together. So the ask is, if you're not part of it, please send a representative. We meet once a month, and we'd love to have you.
So the answer to the question, At UnityPanel, we're advancing a holistic approach that addresses the entire spectrum of challenges families face when a loved one is convicted of sexual harm offense. Our work extends beyond abolishing SORNA. We're tackling the collateral damages and pervasive stigma that burden affected families. Recent initiatives would include launching new community support programs, developing educational resources so that our members feel confident to be advocates. We didn't ask to be here. We are here, and we are here for our loved ones. Most of us probably started our initiatives because of what has happened to our loved ones. So we are advocates, whether you like it or not. You are. It could be as simple as talking to family members, or it could be as large as going to legislative leaders. So that's where UnityPanel comes into play, because most of our members are impacted right now within the facilities, and we want our members to be so confident when they get to the part being on the registry. So besides that, with our membership representing a broad base, from those directly impacted to policy experts, we ensure our solutions are both nuanced and compassionate. So if anybody's interested again, please feel free to call me.
I'm really here representing two organizations, the Alliance for Constitutional Sex Offense Laws, which hopefully everybody knows about, and also the Family Safety Foundation. We keep the Family Safety Foundation under close wraps. We don't really want anybody to know who they are, but if you want to make a donation of $1,000 or more, that's who to make it to, because it's a foundation. And we, as far as ACSOL, we claim every single person on the registry and every family member to be a member. And so in the pending legislation about SORNA that the Pacific Legal Foundation is taking forward, they're litigating, we're a plaintiff. We declared that we claim every single person in this room and everybody you know to be members. And guess what? There are no dues. Okay, so the thing is, we are both organizations are very action oriented. So when I say that we do litigation, legislation, and education, we do all three all the time. We don't just take turns. And so when it comes to legislation, we worked together and we created a tiered registry law in California. They said it couldn't be done. It only took us 6.5 years. Now I understand in Sacramento that's a pretty short period of time. So now I've gotten personally 120 people off the registry, and over 8,000 people have gotten off the registry because of our efforts.
As far as NARSOL, there's three things I want to mention. You said one or two, but I think I can get three in a minute. The one that I'm most excited about is that we are putting together a government relations committee, which the focus is going to be to get a group of experienced legislative advocates together to start building relationships at the national level with lawmakers and to start developing responses and actions regarding those national bills. Up to this point, we focus primarily at the state level, but it's time to start moving into that national sphere at least a little. So we're looking forward to getting that off the ground. We're also supporting an effort that was being led by our state affiliates. They got the ball rolling, and we're supporting it with funding to start researching, developing, and testing some public relations messaging that will actually have a stronger chance to get to the public beyond this choir. Because that's always been a struggle for us, as you've heard, is, we all get it. But when we try to take that message out beyond, it's been a challenge. So we're hoping to be able to reach beyond that. Got about 10 seconds? Huh? Okay. The last one, just very briefly, is that we're also getting off the ground advocate training. And that is where we're actually trying to build out a training series to start helping our advocates and groups at the national level to grow and increase in their effectiveness. We're trying to get that going this year as well.
Thank you. Our next question, we're going to start with Shawn. And the question is, what are the opportunities for involvement in your work for conference attendees? And what does it look like to be a volunteer with your organization?
Thanks, John. We have lots of opportunities for every single one of you. We actively are inviting all of you to join our grassroots efforts, whether that's at the community level or at national level. And really, some people think because maybe you've never been in this type of situation before as far as speaking to other people, it doesn't have to be speaking to other people. It could be if you have an expertise in IT, or if you have a really good way to edit papers and letters and things. I mean, there's so much behind the scenes that we need help with. And I think people don't really realize that that is actually the push with advocacy, is the behind the scenes people. They're so important. And so I guess that would be one avenue that we would be looking for. And the last part would be just to, like not the average Joe said, you know, we need to change our minds on how we're looking at everybody, including yourselves, including people who might not agree with what your point of view is. Because the only way we're going to make change is to be able to reach across that table and have discussions and dialogue. So I ask you, if you're not going to be joining our organization actually per se, to start thinking of ways that you as a person can speak to other people that might not agree with what you have to say.
So I'm going to go back to Restorative Action Alliance, flipping back and forth here. So with Restorative Action Alliance, we have a number of different opportunities. We are a regional organization that works in New York, Connecticut, and a small bit in New Jersey. So if you go to our website, you can sign up for a volunteer form. We have a number of different working groups. Right now, one of our most active working groups is our education team. So you may have seen our webinars that are very, very educational. The team works really, really hard to get that information out there. And we try to pick very, very relevant topics that will reach broad audiences. And if you can't attend webinars, you can amplify them because they are available on a YouTube channel where you can share them. Also, we are looking for folks who are willing to be brave and share their stories on the Amplified Voices podcast. I do have to say that Not Your Average Joe, his podcast episode is going to be published today. So you can check that out. I will let you know as soon as it drops. So this is very, very important because these conversations can be sent to others as an advocacy tool. So just like Shawn, we have many behind the scene things as well. And I'm gonna stop talking because I'm sure I'm out of time.
In order for me to move forward on the big project I'd like to work on this year, the Bravery Day, it would be really great to have some help with the back the scenes things, the hamster wheel things that I can't probably do both of. So we have a thing called the War Room. Every other week I have a speaker who comes on and talks about something invaluable. Having someone to help recruit new people to be those speakers. I'd love a person to edit the things in the background. We've already written a AI generated program to do that, but that's on the list. And a helper to answer the phone, because that takes up a lot of my time, and it's a really valuable thing that has to be done, but it's a hamster wheel thing, and it'd be helpful to have someone help with that. That's my minute.
Well, I would encourage all of you members to get better acquainted with the organizations. And the best way to do that really are through two avenues. One, we have monthly Zoom meetings led by yours truly, and we usually have a couple more board members as well. It's an opportunity to speak to attorneys, and the monthly Zoom meetings are focused on the law, all right? But then we have emotional support group meetings, at least 2 of those a month, and guess what? I have nothing to do with them. And so we have a board member who is actually a licensed social worker. Guess what? He used to be on the registry. I got him his provisional license, and now he's gotten his own full license. So it can be done, folks. And then as far as volunteer opportunities, it just comes whenever you have something to offer. People call from time to time, I want to volunteer. And my first question is, what do you know how to do? So be prepared.
All right. The things that I have on the list, first off, there's definitely one of the things that we could easily use help with, and it requires absolutely no public presence whatsoever, is we need help with researching. One of the things that we have on our website is a resources site, and there are lots and lots of tables full of helpful resources for persons impacted by the registry or looking for resources, information, and so on. There's never an end to what could go on there, and of course, once it's on there, you have to check and make sure it's still accurate because it's a constantly changing thing. So we can always use help. If you like looking for stuff on the internet anyway and finding more information, we definitely need researchers. You can sign up on our website, on our volunteer site. We can also always use help at the state level. You may go to our website and check out, and you can see where we have groups, where we have individuals, and some places where we have neither at the moment. So whether you are wanting to step out or again stay behind the scenes at the state level, if you're not involved, you can definitely do that. And also just keep an eye out. If you join NARSOL, you can be sure you're getting notices. And join now just means support. We don't have members in the same way. To make sure you're seeing our calls to action or any other volunteer opportunities that come up.
Thank you. We're going to start our next question with Anne. And it's a fill in the blanks. And it is, our big ask this year is blank, and we're asking blank to do blank. My fellow panelists, organizations, and conference attendees can help push this forward by blank, and you get 90 seconds for this one.
Well, this is the question I put the less work into, so we'll see how that goes. So the big thing this year is going to be the Bravery Day, and so I think each of you, everywhere you are, start thinking about who are you going to ask? Who in your circle is going to be the people that post this video for us when it's time to come out all at the same day? So start having those conversations, because you're not going to be able to just go to your neighbor and say, will you post this video? You're going to have to start having those conversations while we're making it and start thinking about convincing people that they need to start thinking our way, because we're right? We're on the right side of history. Nobody knows it yet, except for us. But start really thinking. Like, I've got 50 people in my mind already. I'm starting to think about, where can I start going to give a presentation about this? Which of my little circles, my bicycle circle, I bet I could do that. My burner circle, I bet I could do that. And just start having those conversations out in the world so that when we're ready to really mobilize, we've got an army.
Brenda?
All right. I rewrote your sentence, but I think it's all in there. Our big lift this year is building up that advocacy presence at the national level. And again, that's happening through the Government Relations Committee that we're getting going, as well as through our public relations messaging that we're developing this year. We would love to have a few more experienced advocates to assist us as we build up that committee. And there's also going to be opportunities on this public relations process to participate in focus groups and to participate with messaging research. So, stay tuned. Again, if you're connected with us in NARSOL, you should get some opportunities for that. I'm not quite sure how it develops, but there'll be a chance for those focus groups. That's where you get a chance to, they're testing out messaging or asking what would you like to see happen, so they're getting feedback. So those are the things in particular that we'd love to see some help with as we move along.
So for the National Coalition Against Conviction Registries, our big ask this year is show up. And we are building some infrastructure, and we are building out a mechanism to send calls to action to the National Coalition so that we can mobilize the group of organizations as a powerful force. So our ask is also amplify what everyone else is doing. We've heard over and over again at this conference that people are doing amazing things. So it starts with us, and it starts with uplifting one another giving credit where credit is due, and also just making sure that we're not operating from a scarcity mindset. So uplifting what somebody else is doing is not tearing down what you're doing, because we all know there's a lot of work to do. So show up, participate, uplift others, and make sure that you're getting information to the coalition so that we can help and get some action going.
Janice?
Because we're traveling down 3 different paths at the same time, I'm going to bring up 2 things. One has to do with litigation. So for anybody here who cares about overseas travel, I want to file another lawsuit challenging the international migrants law. Okay, so I'm going to need a plaintiff. That's why I needed a plaintiff for that case. I'm looking for my Rosa Parks plaintiff. You were convicted hopefully of a misdemeanor offense, something like indecent exposure or some stupid thing like that. Contact me and let's get her done. I mean, should be a crime. It is a crime to have the unique identifier on the first page of your passport. Okay, and then as far as litigation, so legislation, we're going to our state capital to improve the tiered registry law, passed in 2017, didn't become effective until 2021. 8,000 people have gotten off, but that's not nearly enough. We want to double the number of people who in fact are eligible to petition for removal from the registry. Come join us on Lobby Day, March 25th.
Be there.
Okay, so my first ask is for everybody in this room to get up every morning with positivity and to make sure that you give yourself the self-worth and compassion that you deserve. Everyone walking this journey is facing so much marginalization, stigmatization, and your families are also there doing the same thing, so that's paramount to get through this and to win this fight. The second thing is, I'm bringing it down a little bit level, but the importance is still way up there, is UB4SOR is starting a strategic communication plan to not only eliminate the registry, but to eliminate the term sex offender. So we're hoping that people will join our forces here, and anytime you're talking to outside communities, media, to use person-first language. I know you've heard it here over and over today, but it's so important how we view each other and how we speak about each other. Advocacy 101 starts with how you are viewed and how you speak about yourself and how you are going to fight for your loved one or for yourself. So make sure that you look at yourself in the mirror and say, first person language, how much positivity you have in your life and how good you are to win this fight.
Or do you want to take 30 seconds for RAA?
Oh, I get time for RAA? Yay.
30 seconds.
Okay, so Restorative Action Alliance, particularly in New York, is building a campaign. In New York, we have a risk assessment instrument that is the only one in the country that levels people with a risk assessment instrument that is not validated. It's just made up BS that people got together and said, I think this makes people risky. And this subjects people to lifetime registration and other restrictions, residency and proximity restrictions in a really, really horrible way. It keeps people in prison longer than they should be. So all of those things are related to this instrument. So people that know me know that I'm an abolitionist, but I also believe in incremental change that will change people's lives today. So I don't think those two things are at odds. So if you are in New York, our ask this year is to help build that campaign. And if you aren't in New York, you should be, our ask is to have those coffee table conversations with everybody in your life. And to Shawn's point about your, how you feel about yourself and the language that you use, I often like to say, don't use the oppressive language of the system to describe yourself and others. So take that nugget with you, share it with everyone you know, everyone in the registrant community, and also folks who have experienced harm. Because not only are people not the only, the worst thing that they ever did, they're also not the worst thing that ever happened to them.
Thank you. Our next question, we're going to start with Janice, is when our attendees here head home, what can they do ask others to do or do on their own to move our common goals forward?
I would encourage everybody to think outside the box. So the young man in the middle of the room, you said, how come it's taking so damn long? Well, it's because we're not thinking outside the box enough, okay? And here's an example. So Florida Action Committee that is, well, Chris, you're representing Florida Action Committee, and some other folks, okay? They said, why don't we write a letter to DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency? They're in a budget cutting. Let's just tell them to slash all the funding for SORNA, the Sex Offender Registration and Notification Act. Awesome, right? So we sent a letter to DOGE. They sent a letter to DOGE. Other organizations have sent a letter to DOGE. To Elon Musk himself. My FedEx office, local office, was so impressed that they got to send him a letter. They were really thrilled with themselves, and me too. So think outside the box. We have some crazy ideas. You're going to see some of them tomorrow. We're bringing dustpans to the U.S. Supreme Court. And personally, if John Roberts shows up, I'm personally handing him one. Think outside the box.
Amber?
So I think the best thing, and we talked a little bit about this earlier, that people can do is start to think about, and it's a little bit related to what Janice said, start to think intersectionally about how all these issues go together. Because at the end of the day, the way that people who are on the registry and people who've experienced harm are harmed, these are all human rights violations, right? So everybody knows somebody that has been affected, because the truth of the matter is that this system affects all of us, every single person in the world. So even if you don't know somebody who is directly affected, as we like to call it, we are all affected, right? We are destroying communities, we are creating generational trauma. So think about those other spaces that you may be in. Maybe it's your faith community. Maybe you're involved with like a community center. Maybe you're involved with a homelessness coalition. Maybe you care about veterans. Maybe you're in spaces that care about all of these things. It's all intersectional, and people are very, very angry. If you care about data privacy, now is the time to really make those connections and get involved with groups that also do that and show up for them. They will show up for you. That's what we've experienced in our area, is that when we show up for other folks, they show up for us. So that's my big ask.
Tagging on what she just said, last September, I'm a part of this group called Huru Solidarity Movement. It's reparations for the Black community. And last September, they had a holy shit, we need people in these seats at this trial. And so I said, well, this is exactly what they've been telling we should do. So I flew to Tampa Bay, Florida, and I attended this trial, and 100% we should all be doing that. That's a great idea. And then just conversations. Seriously, conversations with small groups, conversations with big groups, conversation with strangers. When I sent people love my talk to my best friend, he had a conversation with his brother-in-law and sister-in-law last night. Because he's grown to care about this movement the same as I have. So just share your love for everyone. Keep telling people that love is the answer and hate is not the answer. That's what we gotta start sharing.
So my first big ask would be to empower the wins that our initiative has already done. There's quite a few out there. And if you empower the wins, it's going to give you hope. Because a lot was said today, a lot that could make us feel like, damn, we got a long ways to go. But truly, there's been some substantial wins in this fight. So look at your state level and federal level, do some research, and then get involved, piggyback on other advocacy groups that might not have the same alignment as what you're fighting for, but we all have the same goal. So there's lots of things that you could learn from other advocacy groups as well. I know when my son was impacted, the first thing I did was get on the internet to see where we could find support. It was few and far between. We traveled 3.5 hours once a month to go to a support meeting. But because of that support meeting is why I'm sitting here today. So I think that the biggest thing I would want all the attendees to do is get involved to your comfort level, but be educated and be intelligent about that. And then encourage others to do the same thing. And you don't have to get into the weeds about this if you don't feel comfortable doing it. You have to gauge who you're speaking to. And you'll be surprised. There could be someone in, I always say this is the bread aisle at your grocery store, you know, where you have a conversation and all of a sudden they didn't know what happened to you or your family and they are there supporting you. So don't be afraid, but you do have to gauge, be smart and be safe. But other than that, being here is a testament to where you guys want to fight for this, and that's huge. It takes a lot of courage, energy, money to get here, so we appreciate that you're all here.
All right, so I definitely echo the things that I've heard from others on the panel here as far as getting involved with other groups. Don't need to pick just one for sure. What I have on my list particularly was to be sure to check out whether there is a NARSOL group or some other anti-registry state group that's working in your state, and get involved and see how you can help out there. And short of that, you can certainly reach out to us, as we're always happy to try to build more groups in states where we don't have them. Or you may, again, find some other group that's, into justice reform in one way or another and get involved with them. You can still learn from that. If you're not ready for a more public advocacy, you could also join a fearless group. As was mentioned there, support groups are sometimes a good place to begin. We do keep a private listing of such support groups that we've got going. I know Restorative Action Alliance has some, and there's some others out there as well. And we could help you get one started if you don't have one going. Some are online, some are in person these days. And that can sometimes also be a good place to start. I heard from one person today that, he'd gone 10 years. I'm picking on somebody sitting at my table. He said he'd gone 10 years, basically like an ostrich. And then finally said, he finally showed up at a PARSOL conference and was like in tears. Oh God, there are people here who get me. I understand. And that moment where you realize you're not alone, people have your back, it is a really important thing. And it doesn't have to be a conference. Fearless groups do that as well. Other support groups do that as well. There's a lot of people out there that get you and can support you. So those are the things I had on my list.
All right, I have an announcement. Before I do, we're going to take questions for 10 minutes. Here are my rules for questions. We have really smart people up here who know their stuff. So please ask a question and don't make a comment at this time so we can get as many folks in at once. How many folks here are signed up to attend the NARSOL conference in Grand Rapids? If you are signed up for that, then you probably got our super early bird rate, which is now expired. If you have not yet signed up for that, if you register at conference.narsol.org, we'll all be there. So you can keep asking us questions then, since we only have 10 minutes today. If you use the code UNITY, you will save $50 off your registration fee or your sign-up fee. We don't use the hardware, I forgot that. Your sign-up fee, you'll save $50, which is not as good as the people who early bird.
It's better than nothing.
That's better.
You still get that, and if you paid $25 to be here today, that's how do I get that back? So there we go. All right, questions. Christopher will run the microphone around to like David.
If you have a question, if you can, just come line up right here. And
I like it.
Question I have is, how can we help people on level 1? I'm talking about the people that are in the, just coming off of parole, or they're in parole, and also individuals that are in these treatment programs and so forth. And the more we can communicate with them, I know he doesn't want to comment, the more activism we can have, and we also can help them. And I'm trying to do my best on my part. The more we can do, that's great. Thank you.
Amber?
So, thank you, JB, for that question. So some of this has to do with two things, right? If you remember, you think back, like when whatever happened in your life that brought you into this, you were like, where do I go? What do I do? And you were so downtrodden. I remember not being able to get out of bed, right? And what I needed was somebody to come alongside me, right? And I think we can all talk about that kind of experience. So to Brenda's point, there are a lot of support groups. I'm really a big believer in getting to a place where you're some semblance of healed prior to jumping into advocacy, because you cannot sustain yourself if you have not done your work. And so there is, everybody's journey is different. People might be healed while they're incarcerated. People might be healed shortly after they are in reentry, but everybody's journey is different. So you've heard about a lot of resources here today. And then the second thing has to do with capacity. Let's just be honest and real about our organizations that have often very little funding, no paid staff. So when you're talking about how can I get involved, sometimes you can be the person that comes along and I know you're doing that, JB, so you're the example of that. When somebody is just coming to the journey, they need somebody to come alongside them. And so you can either participate in that through circles and fearless groups and all of those other things, or you can also be that person for someone.
I just want to quickly mention too, because what Amber just got done talking about is exactly right. But with UB4SOR, we have an immense networking resource. Mm-hmm. So we have so many people that come to us, and whatever part of the journey that you are on here, if it is reentry services, we just post it to our mass email distribution or even on our social media pages. And the amount of lived experience that comes forward with that is immeasurable. So that is also a nice way to help people.
I love the unity I see here. This is wonderful. But I also know that unity takes a lot of hard work. I've seen criminal justice coalitions fall apart. Mm-hmm. What are you all and the bigger leaders at this national scale going to ensure that we continue in this unified way?
Well, for one thing, we're going to do this every damn year, so you better come back next year. Okay. Look, folks, we need to get the Supreme Court's attention, and the only way we're going to do it is be that steady drumbeat every single March, early March, I'm afraid, because March 5th is the anniversary. Every March, we need to be here. We need to be in Washington, D.C. We only had this conference because people said, hey, I don't want to just go all that way for 1 hour vigil. I need something else. We go, well, we could have a conference. Here we are.
Yeah, I want to just also add, that is why we have this coalition that Amber's been talking about. We made a commitment to that. NARSOL did, I know ACSOL did. We've got all of us continue to participate in that. I think Amber's done a great job at making sure that we are all in it still and really invested in that, and we all are still continuing to participate. I think that should help us overall to make sure that we continue to go forward.
I just want to piggyback on that, and I want to name that every single member of this panel, their organization is part of this national coalition. And one of the things that we're really focusing on, and one of the missions of the coalition, is to really build trust between organizations. Because let's just be real, there's been ups and downs. We're like a family. Sometimes we have disagreements. We don't agree on everything. But when we're showing up and we're in community with one another and we're expecting best intentions, so many misunderstandings happen because it's like, oh, so-and-so did this thing and they wanted to hurt me, and scarcity mindset and all of those things. So we have very significant shared agreements based on restorative practices. I have to bring restorative practices to everything I do about how we're going to interact with one another in this coalition. And so that is the magic is in a little bit in the mechanics, but mostly in the people.
Share these videos. Each one of these videos, share them with people. have these conversations and approach other people who are around you with love and compassion. Find a way when you meet someone who's saying a hatey thing, try to find a way to find some love for that and respond to them in a loving way, in the same way that you would hope they would respond to you, because we're not winning any other way.
And one other thing is to be invested. You need to be invested in this fight, and I don't mean by going all out and doing everything public speaking. I mean looking at where you're at, where your loved one is at, and taking that investment and being more educated, being more aware so that you are confident. Because I think a lot of interest will fall off because people just don't think they can do this. I'm not made up for this, but you are because you're here. So be invested.
Yeah, so as a registrant, all the support is amazing. And now I feel like it almost falls on us registrants. I think the number was 750,000, and there's probably
800.
more.
Yes.
So there's like maybe 40 of us here. So for you guys, how do we get more registrants here? I understand there's financial burdens. I understand there's people on parole. But there should be way more of us here. So how do we get more of us here? You guys are doing your job. It's now us registrants, time to do our job. So how do we do that?
So I love that you said that, and I have two thoughts on that. So when people who are required to register see other people who are required to register succeeding and participating, that paves the way. So you're doing it, and all the people who are required to register are doing it. And then the second thing is we need to make sure that we are centering people who are most impacted by the issue, so that's people on the registry, but also not placing the full burden on the oppressed to tear down the oppression. So we're all working together and we're creating safety for people to be in advocacy. So part of it is that people don't feel safe. They don't feel prepared. So the more that we do that, again, whether it's through mentorship, whether it's through training, whether it's creating safe spaces for registered people to connect, people will be more apt to get involved.
All right, I can just very briefly, I agree. I echo what she said. And I just want to encourage folks that at least at the NARSOL conferences, I haven't taken stock, but I'd say we're at about 50-50 at the NARSOL conferences. So we average about 200 people, and about half of those are persons who either are or have been convicted of a sex offense formally. So people are out and are moving forward, and it really does help to be connected. Yeah.
Last question.
I would like to hear from anybody in the audience after this panel or from the panel of any experiences of reintegrating into faith groups. It's a tough lift.
So I'm gonna do that this way. Would anybody like to have a conversation on that when we leave, like after here? Please raise your hand. Okay. And so, and you can get together in the lobby because we aren't allowed to stay in this room because we have to like immediately leave here. So I want to take a minute while we have some folks up here to acknowledge our sponsors for today, because most of them are up here. The Alliance for
That's
Chris doing it? Oh,
That's
there's
Chris's
Chris.
closing speech.
Will the sponsors please come up here, please? That's Danelle, that's Joey. That's all the rest of us that are already.
So this was sponsored, as we know, from 8 organizations, which is ACSOL, NARSOL, Restorative Action Alliance, WAR, United Voices, Shine Voices, Pathfinder, and Florida Action Committee. Everyone can give a big round of applause for our sponsors. Let's give a big round of applause for all our presenters. And last thing, I want to acknowledge everyone that helped put this together. Janice, Joe, Danelle, Roger, somewhere over there, Roger, Chuck,
And you.
and me. So we do have to be out of the room by 4:30, so if everybody can grab your stuff. Remember tomorrow, the bus leaves at 10 o'clock, so I would say meet in the lobby about 9:30. Don't get left. The vigil will start at 11, go to about noonish, and then everybody can go back to where they came from.